What's going on, everybody? I hope you're enjoying your week so far and you're getting ready for what should be a very, very enjoyable and happy Christmas weekend with your family, friends, and loved ones. This is NYG Jeffy T85 here, and I'm bringing you my New York Giants keys to a victory as the New York Giants, who are right now still coming off one of their best wins of the season. It was gritty, it was hard-nosed, but it's a win nonetheless, over the Washington Commanders, and they right now sit with a record of 8-5-1 on the season and in very strong position to make the playoffs for the first time since 2016 as they get ready to take on the 11-3 Minnesota Vikings, who are coming off a game where they played two different halves pretty much. In the first half, they got absolutely just taken apart and taken behind the woodshed by the Indianapolis Colts, whom actually the Giants play the next week afterwards. But they were able to come back and put up a whole lot of points and win that game at the end by the final score of 36-33. So the New York Giants are getting ready for what should be a very, very difficult test. And the Giants, yes, they're still showing their warts on this team. They're still showing their warts on offense. They're showing their warts on defense. They're showing their warts on special teams. But at the same time, this New York Giants team just continues to go out there and try. They go out there and put out 100% effort. They go out there and put out the 100% grit. They go out there and just continue to play the type of football that you need to look for heading into the playoff stretch. Hard-nosed, old school, tough-minded, pass rush, defensive football, especially from your front line. And Azeez Ojulari, since he's come back to this team a couple of weeks ago, has reignited this sleeping giant known as the New York Giants pass rush. And Kayvon Thibodeau is coming off an absolutely monster game where he pretty much single-handedly won that football game against the Washington Commanders with the performance that he had, where he had 12 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 fumble, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, 1 touchdown, 3 tackles for loss. The guy was absolutely unbelievable. And we're going to need him. We're going to need Ojulari. We're going to need all these guys as we're going to be going up against one of the most high-powered offenses in the NFL and the Minnesota Vikings, who have firepower all over the place. But is this a game that the Giants can win? Absolutely. Because we have some things on our team that will give the Minnesota Vikings some issues going forward. But is this going to be an easy game at all? Hell no. This is going to be an absolute battle. And it can go multiple ways. The Minnesota Vikings are one of those football teams that are in a Jekyll and Hyde team. They can go out there and they can either light you up on the scoreboard and take you out of the game immediately, or they can go out there and they could struggle in the beginning of the games and they could pretty much make it easy for you to be able to stay competitive or possibly go over the top against them. This is going to be one of those very difficult games for the New York Giants, heading to a place where the Giants have had a hell of a lot of nightmares in. Whether it was Eli Manning, Phil Simms, Daniel Jones, it doesn't matter who it was at quarterback. The Minnesota Vikings have always been that one football team that the New York Giants just can't seem to solve, especially when it's in Minnesota. We've had devastating injuries. We've had bad performances with our quarterbacks. We've had monster turnovers, tons of penalties. The Vikings just seem to be that team that gives the New York Giants a lot of problems, especially when we travel to Minnesota. But hopefully this will be the week where things are going to change. But enough of me just talking about the mainstays of the game. You're here to listen to what I have to say in my keys to victory for this game. Now, the one thing the Minnesota Vikings do have a little bit of issues with is stopping the run. They are a solid run-stopping team, but they're not great. So my number one key of the game, and what's going to help out this team the most, is we got to run the football. Saquon Barkley was pretty much bottled up and has been largely ineffective for the past 3 or 4 games. He's had some moments, including in the Washington game, where he ripped off 3 straight 10-plus yard gains, which helped put us in field goal range to put us up by 8 against the Commanders. But for the most part, Saquon Barkley in the running game has been largely invisible, so we need to find a way to get that running game going and get Saquon Barkley going more consistently throughout the entire game, because we're going to need a big performance from Saquon to be able to at least keep that high-powered Minnesota Vikings offense on the sidelines and not on the football field. If you want to try to find a way to slow down the Vikings, one of the biggest things you need to do is run the football consistently. Saquon Barkley, Matt Breida, Gary Brightwell, Daniel Jones with design runs, RPOs, bootleg runs, whatever it is. Read options. You need to be able to run the football against this Minnesota Vikings team. And obviously we're going to be going up against our old friend, Dalvin Tomlinson at the defensive tackle position. We also have Eric Kendricks, who's in the middle of that field, and you have Harrison Smith, the longtime Minnesota Vikings safety. You got Kendricks, the longtime Minnesota Vikings linebacker. Tomlinson in the middle. This team is a team that can stop the run decently, but the Giants have got to get that run game going because of the fact we are so largely ineffective in the passing game. We're getting virtually nothing in that passing game, so we have to be able to establish the run, if not just to get the ground game going, but to eat up clock, and we need to win the time of possession, and the running game helps us do that. So I want to see a bigger game from Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones with some of these read options. I want to see more of the running game going forward, and that includes what I mentioned a couple of times in my past videos, and that's design runs where you have 3 running backs on the football field. You can use Saquon Barkley as a decoy, and you can hand the ball off to a Gary Brightwell, to a Matt Breida, and you can also have Saquon Barkley out there not only as a decoy, but you can have him out there as a blocker or maybe even a fullback, just because of the fact that he's such a threat when he's on the football field, and defenses are going to be, always keeping their eye on what 26 is going to be doing on the field. You could have design runs to other guys, and you could use Saquon Barkley as a decoy or a blocker on the field. And you got to get Daniel Jones more involved when it comes to these read options, design runs, bootleg runs, whatever it is, because it fools the defense, and they don't expect it to be coming all the time. So I want to see this running game get more established heading into this game on Saturday. My second key to the game, and this is still a major problem with the Giants. We have to stop the run, and I am not going to stop saying that. In all my keys to victories, one of the most common themes that I've been saying for weeks is the Giants have got to stop the run. We are getting gashed game in and game out every single week by opposing running backs. And Brian Robinson, he was doing it to us again during last week. The only reason why the Washington Commanders stopped running the football, which is kind of confusing because they were really doing a good job against us in the run game, but I think it's because we got off to a very strong lead. We got off to a 14-3 lead, and Washington had no choice but to go out there and start passing the football a lot more because of the fact that we're down by 11, and that took away one of their biggest strengths and against one of our biggest weaknesses, which was them running the football against our very, very suspect and porous run defense. And obviously, have to see how the run defense is going to look now. I thought Landon Collins came in and gave us a little bit of a spark. Collins is now going to be part of the active roster. They waived Tay Crowder, the former Mr. Irrelevant, 255th pick out of Georgia back in 2020 in the 7th round. The Giants' run defense has got to be better against Alex Madison and, of course, against Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is one of the best dual threat running backs in the NFL. He is one of the best dual threat running backs in the NFL. This guy can create monster issues for you in the run game and the pass game, but specifically in the run game. You don't think the Minnesota Vikings have been watching the Giants game tape and they see the fact that this Giants team, for some reason, just cannot guard against the run on a consistent basis. And you don't think this Minnesota Vikings team is going to look at that and they're going to try to exploit this Giants run defense because of the fact our linebackers are not up to par and not where we want them to be? Of course they're going to try to run the football for a good amount, which is going to set up the play action pass and the passing game for the Minnesota Vikings. So we have to keep a lookout for the Minnesota Vikings in terms of that run game, because they're going to run that football with Alex Madison and especially Dalvin Cook. We have to make sure we stop the run a lot better, because if we can't stop the run against the Minnesota Vikings and this team, their offense is Jekyll and Hyde, but when their offense gets going, you're talking about one of the best offenses in the NFL, bar to none. They are. So we have to stop the run game by any means necessary. My third key to the game, and this is going to be maybe the biggest key of this entire football game. We have to get a pass rush, but more specifically with this key, we are going to have to get home with 4. We have to get home with 4, and we have to dial back the blitzing a little bit. I know that's a tough thing to say. Wink Martindale, our defensive coordinator that's done a fantastic job this year, he is going to live and die by his blitz packages. Plain and simple, he's going to blitz, and he's not going to stop blitzing until he's able to get the opposing quarterback rattled, in this case, Kirk Cousins. But we need to find a way to get home with 4, because Xavier McKinney is not going to be playing in this game, and it's really not looking like Adoree Jackson is going to be playing in this game either. And we're going to be trotting out the same guys at cornerback that we've had for pretty much the past 5 to 6 weeks. Nick McLeod, Cordell Flott, Darnay Holmes, Fabian Moreau. Moreau's actually done a pretty decent job at one part of the cornerback position. But the rest of those guys, they are weaknesses. Darnay Holmes is getting torched in the slot. Cordell Flott is not ready to be out there. And Nick McLeod, bless his heart, he's doing a solid job for the best he can, but he's not an NFL starting cornerback. And we are going to be going up against a tremendous wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. And it's not even just him. There's other good players on that team and that offense. TJ Hawkinson, KJ Osborne, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook coming out of the backfield. The Giants have got to get home with 4. And Kayvon Thibodeau, who's coming off a monster game on Sunday Night Football against the Washington Commanders. We're looking at you. We're looking at Azeez Ojulari. We are looking at Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence mainly as the top 4 guys. You have got to find a way to get home with 4. Minnesota has good tackle play, with Brian O'Neill at right tackle and Christian Darrisaw at left tackle. These guys are good offensive tackles on that Minnesota Vikings offensive line. Ben Cleveland is a solid left guard, but at the same time, the Giants have got to get a pass rush against this offensive line. That is the best way we will have a chance of slowing down this Minnesota Vikings passing game. We have to get a pass rush, and especially have to get home with 4. So I'm putting my onus on Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence. These guys have got to dominate the line of scrimmage against that Minnesota Vikings offense. And it can go a long way on determining if the Giants are going to have a legit chance to slow down. We're not stopping this Vikings offense. Let's just get it clear. We're not stopping them, but we're going to slow them down. And the best chance we have at slowing this Vikings offense down is by getting a pass rush against them and stopping the run. So in a way, my second and third keys tie into one another because of the fact we need both of them to slow down this high-powered Minnesota Vikings offense. My fourth key to the game, and I'm going right to one of the problems with this team lately, and that is the special teams. Special teams, not named Graham Gano, have been an absolute disaster for this football team the past few weeks. The punt and kick coverage have been inept lately. We're letting guys run down the football field when we score touchdowns, and they're running down the field and either getting close to midfield on their side of the field or they're getting in our side of their territory. And our punt and kick return game has been an absolute non-factor. Richie James had a nice return last week against the Washington Commanders, where he got the ball up to the 35, 40-yard line. But at the same time, he also let a ball roll past him that was down at about the 2-yard line on our side of the field. And Jamie Gillen, the guy's got a big foot. He can punt the football long, but this guy does not know how to directionally punt kicks. Our special teams has got to do a better job in the overall aspect, not name Graham Gano, because Gano is fine. He goes out there and he gives Giants fans the utmost confidence that he's going to get the job done. But the rest of that special teams unit has got to get better. We cannot allow the Minnesota Vikings, with how good that offense is, we cannot allow the Vikings to get into our territory and get into better field position than we had before. Because if the Minnesota Vikings can find a way to get themselves any type of return game, and they get themselves set up where they're either at their own 35, 40-yard line, or God forbid they get past midfield in our territory, we are in trouble. Because we'd be just giving them points. So that's what I want to see. I want to see the special teams unit all together go out there and go out there and get some good returns in the punt and kick return game. Do a much better job in kick and punt coverage, because that has been really a major problem for this football team in the past few weeks. And do a better job punting the football. Jamie Gillen, I'm looking at you, buddy. Directionally kick the ball out better. Pin the Vikings in their own territory from the 25-yard line or further back. I would prefer 15 to 10-yard line or even worse. 2. Pin them as far back as you can. And my 5th key to the game is I want to see this football team take shots down the field. My first 4 keys make sense. Run the football, stop the run, pass rush with 4, and special teams. But the one thing the New York Giants did not do against the Washington Commanders in the second game, and in some ways the first game, is we didn't take a chance and take some shots down the field to stretch that defense out. And the Minnesota Vikings have a very suspect secondary. Harrison Smith and Patrick Peterson, while they're still solid players, they are not the same guys that they were in their prime. And you have some young players out there in that secondary that the New York Giants can exploit, even with a limited wide receiver core. You have to take shots downfield. You have to stretch that defense. You have to make that defense honest and make them know that we are going to go out there and we are going to take some chances. And make that defensive coordinator know that no matter what, oh crap, the Giants are going to take shots downfield. We better be on our hands. We better be careful. And Darius Slayton has had the ability to go deep in some of these plays. Isaiah Hodgins has even gone deep a couple of times. You have to take shots down the football field and make this Minnesota Vikings defense honest. I don't know why we didn't do it against the Washington Commanders both times. We did it against the Philadelphia Eagles. And what's the worst that could happen if you take shots down the field? It gets intercepted. You don't want that, but it's pretty much a free kick as long as you cover. You have to take shots downfield. You have to make that Minnesota Vikings defense honest. You can't just sit back and dink, dunk, dink, dunk, dink, dunk. Because it might look impressive on the stat sheet, 24 of 28, etc. for Daniel Jones and this passing game. But you have to take a shot. Make this defense respect you. So I want to see multiple shots down the field against this Vikings secondary. Make them cover our receivers. Make them cover our trash wide receivers. Because that's what we all think right now. These wide receivers are not good enough. Make them cover them. This is going to be a very difficult game for the New York Giants to win. You could be the most optimistic New York Giants fan out there, coming off beating your chest after we won that game against the Commanders. And we're 8-5-1, and we are in a damn good position to make the playoffs. That is amazing. But we are not going to have it easy going to a place that we do not play well in Minnesota. We never play well against Minnesota in that damn stadium. No matter what the stadium is, we never play well against the Vikings in their home stadium. So, I mean, the Giants, this is going to be a tough game. But is it a game that we can win? Absolutely. And it's going to have to come with the formula that I just laid out. If we can run the football consistently with Barkley, Jones, and our other running backs, if we could stop the run and limit Dalvin Cook to under 100 yards rushing, if we can get ourselves a pass rush with 4 especially, and it could dial back the blitz packages a little bit, maybe have some design blitz at times, we can rush home with 4 and at least not put our very shaky cornerbacks on an island. It's going to help us out a lot more on defense. If we can play much better on special teams and not allow the Minnesota Vikings to get the football and start their possessions in near a midfield or in our territory. And if we can take some shots down the field and make that Minnesota Vikings team honest on the defensive side, especially with that secondary, we will be in much better shape to win this football game. This is not going to be easy. Out of the next 3 games, this is going to be one of our tougher ones. But it's not out of the question the Giants can go down to Minnesota and find a way to pull it out as long as they go and play their style of football and don't deviate from what this team does best. 8-5-1 is a beautiful record, but 9-5-1 sounds a hell of a lot better. And let's see if the Giants can head down to Minnesota and they could punch their ticket to the NFL playoffs. So that is my New York Giants keys to victory over the Minnesota Vikings for Week 16, Saturday. Just remember, it's Christmas Eve. It's not going to be on Christmas. The game will be played on Saturday, December 24th, Christmas Eve. Week 16. So if you guys like this video, please hit the like button below. Sub up if you haven't already to NYGJeffyT85 for more breaking news, updates, chatter, and keys to victories for the New York Giants. Turn on the bell for notifications on the next video or short that's going to be dropping on the channel surrounding the New York Giants. And you guys let me know in the comment section, what is your confidence level heading into this game against the Minnesota Vikings, and what are your keys to a victory for the New York Giants to pull off the upset against the Minnesota Vikings in Minneapolis, Minnesota for Week 16, Saturday, Christmas Eve. So I thank you very much, everybody. I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your week. Everybody enjoy your Christmas Eve and Christmas. Have a great Christmas weekend. Enjoy it with your loved ones. Get some awesome presents. Just enjoy the festivities for this weekend for Christmas and Christmas Eve. And as always, let's go New York Football Giants. Let's continue to shock the world. Let's get it done. 9-5-1 seems like a damn good record to have. Take it easy, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. And as always, together blue, everyone.